G'day, it is Brack here. Look, there is going to be a strong possibility that we are going to see the Orc Codex sometime this year. Now, if I was a betting man, I would put my money on somewhere around Easter to June, but that's me just having a guess. So take that with a grain of salt. Look, that being said, I thought that this is a good time to be reflective about this wonderful book that we all seem to love so much. And I thought I would go through my top 5 things in this book which I think don't need changing. But before we do that, let's talk about coffee. In particular, this coffee, which is brought to me by Gorko Markos. Very nice indeed. If you'd like to support the channel, please head on over to the Buy Me Coffee app and buy me a coffee. It'd be muchly appreciated. So thanks to you, Gorko Markos, for this video is for you. Now, let's go and have a look at this list. Number 5, Commandos. When the 8th edition rule set dropped and we were all using indexes, Commandos were great. They were an auto include in my lists and I won many a game with them. This was mainly because back in the early days you could place them in behind enemy lines on your first turn and do some serious alpha strike damage to your foe. Then that got FAQ'd and no more deep striking on first turn. Commandos were just not as effective after that. They were still a good unit, but their alpha striking abilities were taken away and they had become less attractive to other options. In 8, troop choices reigned supreme, as it was basically all the game was about maximising command points. Why waste points on commandos when you could use to jump on 30 boys? Now, in 9th edition, it seems commandos are making a resurgence. The 9th edition has seen a move away from command point farming and is now all about securing objectives. Commandos are great for securing secondary objectives such as engage all fronts, line breaker and domination early in the game. And if you're like me and play Death Skulls, the Zog off its mind rule makes the commando unit objective secured, so they are great for stealing and holding objectives. Commandos, in my opinion, are a solid little unit, and with abilities like Sneaky Gits, gives you extra cover saves, and Throat Slitters, which gives you extra melee attacks, they can give your foe a hard time indeed. Number 4, Tank Busters. Tank Busters have always been a solid unit. Well, I started the game in 5th edition, so I can't really say for sure what they were like before that. However, since 5, Tank Busters can be seen in many a war. Sure, they're a bit squishy with only having a t-shirt save of 6+, but what they lack in durability, they definitely make up for in devastation. And well, killing the big stuff. Most weapons in their arsenal have a strength of 8 and an armor penetration of 2. Not too shabby. And damage? Boy, can Tank Busters dish it out. Their standard rocket is a solid 3 damage, and both the Squig bombs and the Tank Buster bombs can dish out a D6 damage, so the potential to take down the big stuff on one turn of shooting is huge. Especially when you factor in their ability to re-roll hit attacks on vehicles. Very devastating indeed. But wait, there's more. If you combine this unit with stratagems such as more dagger, that's auto hitting with exploding shots on a 5+, or if you are a Bad Moons player, showing off, that's an extra round of shooting, then the devastation just gets better. There are ways to negate the squishiness of tank busters. You can, with the combination of clever deployment, using terrain for cover, and utilising the jump so you can place them in a safer, more convenient tank busting position, they have a better chance of dying after you have dished out the damage. Just remember, if your opponent knows what they are doing, this unit will be a top priority for them. Or you could place them in an open top vehicle. Sure, there was a time in the 9th edition when tank busters couldn't use their reroll ability in an open top vehicle, but a recent FAQ finally did away with that nonsense. So tank busters can enjoy a nice joyride in the battlefield once again. Sure, they can't use their stratagems in vehicles, but rerolls to hit is still a wondrous thing for a tank buster. The only downside is that when in an open top vehicle, you can't really max out on the amount of bomb squigs you can use, because bomb squigs count as models. You can only fit 2 in a truck and 5 in a battle wag. It was a little sad, but not devastating. Regardless, tank busters are a strong, hard-hitting unit and so much fun to play. Number 3. Here we go. Here is the rule. Once a mob of orcs builds up a good head of steam, their sheer momentum carries them into fight like a green avalanche. You can re-roll charge rolls for this unit. When doing so, you can re-roll all or any of the dice. What I like about this rule is that it is fluffy as. It is, in my opinion, one of the most orky rules in the Codex. This rule gives the boys a fighting chance, if you pardon the pun, to get into combat easier. Although orcs are decent at shooting in today's game, what an orc player really wants is to have a good old bout of fisticuffs with their enemy. Well, fisticuffs with sharp pointy weapons, but the general concept is still the same. As that old wise orc saying goes, a good old crumping is a good old crumping. What I really like about this rule is that you have the choice of rolling 1 or 2 dice. You are not forced to re-roll a 6, so therefore that potential to get into the fray is a little bit easier. Or better. Or both. Great little rule, good for the game, great way to represent the fluff. Oh, and I think I already mentioned this, orky as. Number 2. The War Boss. The War Boss. Fluff-wise, he is the War. He is the apex warrior in any clan or tribe. There can only be one orc in charge, and that is the War Boss. Currently starting at 70 points, the War Boss is a very cheap unit for what he does. My War Boss costs me 83 points, and that isn't too shabby. I have previously recorded a video in just how wondrous the War Boss is and how best to use it, so if you want to go and check that out, ding, there's a thing. And because of that, I won't be going into too much detail here. Let's look at what he brings to the table. He can spur the troops to charge after they have advanced. That's the war ability with the 6-inch aura. And he can be quite persuasive when convincing troops not to run away. That's the breaking heads ability. The War Boss stat line is pretty good with strength 6, toughness 5, 6 wounds and 4 attacks. It's okay. However, with a combination of warlord traits, shiny goblins and stratagems, you can turn any humble war boss into a mean green crumpin' machine. I'm looking at you, the biggest boss, the Killer Claw and Might is Right. The War Boss, he is iconic, he is fluffy, relatively cheap, and a killing machine. what's not to love. Now for my number one thing in the Codex which does not need changing. Roll of the drums. It is Dakka, Dakka, Dakka. The rule. Each time you roll an unmodified hit roll of 6 for an attack with a ranged weapon made by a model in this unit, that hit roll succeeds regardless of any modifiers. In addition, immediately make an additional hit roll against the same target using the same weapon. These additional hit rolls cannot themselves generate any further hit rolls. There's a bit more here, but that's all about randomness and we don't really need to go into that for what I'm going to talk about. Some may remember the dark times when the 8th edition first dropped and that orc shooting was seriously nerfed. Not by our rule sets, but by the rule sets of other factions, especially units which had negative modifiers to shoot against units targeting them. With a BS of 5+, it was quite common for you to need a 7 or an 8 to hit, which is impossible if you use a 6-sided die. It was a tough time indeed, and there were some armies you just didn't want to face on the table. I'm looking at you, Eldari and Drukhari especially. But then the 8th edition Codex came and gave us the salvation we were looking for. Dakka, Dakka, Dakka. It was nice to know that there was a 1 in 6 chance you actually get to hit something. Now this might not seem much to a Space Marine or a Tau player, but for orcs it made us players want to go shooting again. Surprisingly, this rule did make orc a solid shooting faction, especially if you are a Bad Moons player. Freebooters and Death Skulls also didn't do too bad out of this as well. Units which really benefit from this rule were looters, tank busters, flash kits, Dakka jets, just to name a few. Well, let's not forget the mech guns. Boy, there was a lot of mech guns after this edition dropped, wasn't there? Combining Dakka, Dakka, Dakka with the more Dakka strategy, gives you exploding hits on a 5+, was just fantastic. It was a great thing, and Drukhari players just didn't seem to want to play with you anymore. Dakka, Dakka, Dakka is our saviour, and that is why it is my number one thing in the Codex which does not need changing. Well, there you have it, my top 5 things in the Codex which do not need to change. Sure, if GW want to improve, then well, I won't mind. But GW, if you take anything away, then Brack gets mad. So, what did you think of the list? Do you like it? Hate it? Was there something I missed? Please comment below. Let's have a conversation. If you liked this video, please smash that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. If you'd like to support me financially so I can make more videos like this, and maybe some even better, you can subscribe to me on Patreon or buy me a coffee. The links will be in the description below. Okay, well, it is time for me to go, so I'm going to leave you with one more piece of wisdom. If you're going crumpin', remember to bash early and bash often.